Hi there guys, how you going? You've got Riz Khan here from RionCapital.com. In this particular video, we're going to go over 7 proven ways to make money with real estate. So I'm going to walk you through these 7 steps over here, starting off with buying and selling after some time. So this is where you buy some property and you hold it for quite some time and then you decide to sell it. The other option is that you can actually buy it and sell it quickly. In this particular case, you do have to buy the property well under fair market value, but you can buy it and sell it very quickly, often known as flipping the property. And then you've got another option where you don't actually buy the property, yet you do control it. So who cares if the title's under your name or not, as long as you can still make that money out of it that you need to, as long as you can still do to it what you need and control it in order to make some money from it, that all works for you. The other option you've got is where you buy it and you hold it for some time and you actually work up some equity into the property, and then you go out back to the banks and you refinance and you can get paid back out a lump sum payout. Another option is where you're subdividing the property, right? So you're buying a block of land and you start to subdivide that. The other option is where you're converting the use of the property. So it was initially built for a particular purpose and you're now changing the purpose of that property. And the final option I'm going to walk through is where you actually do some self-development yourself. So you buy some land and you start to actually do some development on it, or you just basically sell off the redevelopment rights. So they're the 7 options that I'm going to walk through in this particular video. Let's start one by one. So we'll start off with the first option over here. Let me just bring that into the screen so it's a bit easier to read. So the first option is where you buy the property and you're going to sell it after some time, okay? And the way that this is bought is you actually get a bank loan. So you usually put down about a 20% deposit and the other 80% is through a bank loan. You buy these properties usually through a real estate agent and sometimes through a private seller as well. And the way that you make money here is there's 2 ways. One is capital gains and the other one is cash flow. So let me just bring this over a bit more. So when you're looking at capital gains, there's 2 ways that you can actually make money in capital gains. The first one is inflation and the other one is appreciation. So inflation is where the value of that property, the amount that it sells for, actually goes up due to inflationary reasons, such as where the government is just printing money, or there's an increasing money supply, or there's quantitative easing going on, right? So this is where the things of prices all around you are just going up simply because there's more money in the market, and so that more money in the market is sort of bidding for the same amount of goods in the market, and therefore people can bid higher prices for those goods. Okay, that's just inflation. The other way that property can rise is due to appreciation, and this is where it's actually due to an increase in demand versus supply. So this is where there's more people now that want to purchase your property than there were before, and that might be for a number of reasons. Maybe there's been a new school built near your house, or for whatever reason, maybe there's been an increase in the value of the location that your property is at. And there's different ways in another video where I talk about how you can actually increase the location of your property by getting more schools built near you, or bus stops put near you, or other just facilities that people generally want to live near, like parks and shopping center malls and playgrounds and so on and so forth. An example of how money is made in cash flow is right here. So let's say that you've bought the property for $100,000 and you borrowed $80,000, and so therefore your down payment was $20,000. Then let's say that the property increases by 25%, right? So you bought it at $100,000, it increases by 25%, so now it's valued at $125,000. Well, you only put in $20,000 because your down payment up here was only $20,000. So although the property's gone up to $125,000, and the profit of the property, the increase in dollar amount of the property from $100,000 to $125,000 is actually $25,000. Now, on your amount, you only put in $20,000 and that's gone up to $25,000. And so therefore for you, that is a greater than 100% increase, right? So a 25% increase in the value of the property for you means more than 100% because you used back up here, because you used leverage to purchase that property. Okay, so that's how you can make money in property for capital gains. But the other way that we spoke about was cash flow. So this is where you're getting rental returns. And the example here is that let's say you bought $1 million property, right? So you borrowed $800,000 and your down payment was $200,000. Then let's say the rental return on this is about 7.5%, right? So you're getting back $70,000 per year, and your payments on your loan might be something like $56,000 per year. So let's say, it's at about 5.75%. Well, if we now work out what the return for this is, well, the return is going to be the amount that you get, right? Your total rentals, 75,000, subtracting your repayments of 56,000, which leaves us with, around about 20,000 or so. And what was your down payment? Your down payment was 200,000. So 20,000 over 200,000 is just under, is around about sort of that, or 19,000 over 200,000 is just under 10%. So that's how you make money using cash flow. So this is the very traditional way that people purchase property. And again, the two ways of making money in this traditional way is capital gains when you actually decide to sell the property. And before you sell it, it's that cash flow that continues to come in month after month. So that's the first method that I'm going to speak about. So I'll close that node off and I'll open up this second node. This is one of my favorites and it's the one that I use the most. So in this example, this is where you're buying some property and you're looking to sell it pretty quickly, okay? And often you sell it the same day that you buy it. And this is how I basically do it, right? And how's it bought? Well, it's usually bought with no money down. So you're flipping the house and you do that through either doing, a double close or you just assign your contract to the third party buyer. So who do you buy these properties from? Well, you can buy them from private sellers or banks and credit unions. I often buy my properties direct from the banks. The beauty of that is as you build these relationships with the banks, you can continue to buy more and more REO from the banks. As opposed to private sellers, you then need to go out and find another private seller every time you want to purchase a new property. But with the banks, you can just continue to deal with them on a monthly basis. So therefore, you actually build a sustainable business because you have a continuous stream of REO ready for you to sell onwards. So how is the money made? Well, you buy these distressed assets from the banks, right? So you buy REO, and again, you could do this with foreclosures or notes, but I'm talking about property, so bank-owned property or real estate owned, which is REO. So you buy this REO from the banks, right? And then you end up selling them to other private investors or capital funds. And usually the way that I do it, I'll usually have my buyer lined up. So I'll usually find a particular buyer and understand what he's after in which region, and then I'll go to a bank in that region and basically find him and get him what he wants. An example is basically you buy it for way under market value. I've often, bought my properties for even as low as 25 cents in the dollar. So you buy it for way under market value and then you sell it at market value or just a little bit under market value, and that creates you a win-win situation. And again, you're buying them from the banks and then you're selling them back to private investors or capital funds. So that's the second option I wanted to talk about. And again, that is my favorite way of making money through real estate, and that's the most frequent method that I use in order to make my money in real estate. The next option I want to talk about is where you don't actually buy it, but yet you do control it. So let's have a chat about this. Let me just move this over. This is basically, it's a lease option, okay? And this allows you both cash flow and appreciation. So you haven't actually purchased the property, but all you've got on it is basically a lease and an option, right? So basically it's a lease option. So then what you can do, you can get cash flow and you can get appreciation. The cash flow is from the lease, right? Because you've got the lease, you can then go and rent that out to someone else and continuously receive rental income for yourself, okay? And the appreciation is because you have the option to actually purchase that property at an agreed amount, right? So because you've got the option to purchase it at that agreed amount, you can then either exercise your option and you can buy the property and then double close it to somebody else, or alternatively, you can just sell your option on to the other interested party and then he exercises your option on his behalf. So that's a great method there of not having to actually own the property, but yet you're still able to control it in whatever manner you want. In other words, you're still able to get that rental income and you're also able to get the appreciation value from it as well. So moving on to the next option is where you buy and then you hold it and then you basically refinance it to get a sum payout. Okay, in this method, let's say that you purchase some property for $1 million and it's increased to $1.5 million. Well, you can basically take some of your equity, right? You can take some of your equity out based on the current market value. And that's the key here, that it's based on the current market value. So when you bought your property for $1 million, if it's now increased to 1.5 million, and during that, you've paid off some of your loan, right? And let's say that the amount owing in the loan is now $650,000, right? So you've paid some of it off and you've paid it down to $650,000 owing. So what's your equity in this property now? Well, 1.5 million minus the $650,000 owing, that leaves you with $850,000 in equity. Okay, now the bank will give you 80% of loan to value ratio, right? So 80% of your equity, right? They'll give you that just as a payout, right? You can take that out and you can continue, and it just comes back onto your loan and you can continue to pay it off. But the beauty is you've now got $550,000 that you can go reinvest or spend however you want elsewhere. So you still have that initial property, but you've now just taken some of the equity out of that property to go and basically reinvest that elsewhere. Moving on to the next way that I was going to talk about in terms of making money through property is subdividing the property. This is a pretty basic method where you buy, say, for example, 500 acres of land, and then you just divide that, and you'd work out how much land each house can sort of take or how much land it would require. You then basically just subdivide the land and you resell that for a higher price. So basically, you're buying it at wholesale because you're buying it at bulk, a huge amount of land. And then when you subdivide it, you just resell it individually to individual people that are looking to put their houses onto that, and therefore you can sell it at a higher price. And when you sum it all up, when you sell all of these, divided land, smaller blocks of lands, and you sum all the prices up, then you work out that, okay, that is being sold at a higher price for what you initially bought the entire 500 acres for. So that's subdividing it. The other option is where you're converting the use of the property. Let's take a look at this. So this is where, for example, you purchase 48 units. And again, it's similar to subdividing it, but here you're not actually purchasing the land. You're actually purchasing units or, ready-made sort of things ready to go. So you purchase 48 units at wholesale, and then you just sell them individually at retail. Alternatively, you can convert that residential into an office and sell it like that as well. So initially it was a residential unit where people lived in, but you then convert the use of that property and turn them into offices or even small little sort of retail shops, and then you sell them off as that. And obviously this particular method does require some research into the area that you are investing in. Okay, so the next option here, and the final option that I'm going to talk about, is where you're doing self-development or you're just selling off the redevelopment rights. So I'll just move that up into a more visible area. Okay, so the example in this particular option is where, for example, you purchase 4 acres of land for a neighborhood shopping center, right? And you may purchase these 4 acres of land for, let's say, $130,000. What you then do, you then go to the local council and you basically obtain development and construction permit to be able to start development and construction on this particular piece of land. As soon as you're able to do that, the value of that land goes up, right? So, and this, in this example, a realistic value for that would be that it goes up to, say, $250,000. So straight away, you're in profit at $80,000. And you could look to sell it right there. But, often if you've got another $50,000 and you want to take it all the way, then that's probably the way to go. Because here, you've really, just got the development and construction permits, right? But there's a lot more that still needs to be done. So if you've got another $50,000 or so to spend, and you do that, on lawyers, and you test the soil, you go to the public hearings, and you do whatever else the city wants you to do, and that can take up to sort of 12 to 24 months to do that process. But once you've sort of got all that clear and you're ready to actually start development on that land, then that value basically jumps up to about, say, $500,000, okay? So you've bought it, at $130,000. You've spent another $50,000, so that's a total of $180,000. The current value is $500,000. So if I subtract that, then the profit there is $320,000. So the idea here is that you're purchasing some land and you're getting it ready for redevelopment. So you may not be the one that's going to do the redevelopment yourself, but you can then resell those redevelopment rights to someone else. And all you've done the hard work in terms of getting the development and construction permits and doing everything else that the city wants you to do in order to start developing on that bit of land. So that ends this video, and just to summarize, we've basically gone through 7 proven ways to make money in real estate. The first one is the very traditional one where you basically buy it and you sell it after quite some time. And in here you are making money through rental and also the property increasing in price from inflation and also appreciation. The second one, which is my favorite, where you can purchase property direct from the banks for a very, way under their fair market value and then resell that to other private investors. The third one is where you don't actually purchase the property, but yet you take a lease option on it, and that still allows you to get in rental income, and also you can also advantage from the increase in value because you can then exercise your option and sell it at the original agreed price. The fourth option is where you are buying and holding onto that property, and once that increases, once your equity has increased to a certain amount, you can then get a lump sum of a payout for 80% of your equity. The next one was where you're purchasing some land at wholesale and then you're subdividing that land and basically reselling it at a retail price. The sixth option was where you're converting the use of that property. Either you're purchasing, a block of units, say 48 units, and you're reselling them one by one at retail, or you're then converting the use of each one of those units to actually be, a storage apartment or a retail apartment or some type of an office. And by converting the use of that property, you can also get more money for it that way. And the last option was where you're basically buying some land and you're doing what the council and the city wants you to do in order to start some type of development onto that land. So the example was a shopping center where you basically bought some land and you then done what the council wanted you to do in order to start developing a shopping center in that area somewhere. So once you do that, once you do all the hard work that the council wanted you to do, you can then simply just resell that development rights to someone else. So thank you for listening. I hope this video has been helpful to you, and I look forward to speaking with you again sometime soon. Bye for now.